Update. My parents refused to pay for my college tuition, so I asked my grandparents to pay for it, but this made them angry and they cut me off saying that I have ruined their reputation. They reminded me that I belonged to a business family and no son of theirs was going to work as long as they were around to provide for me. It was disgraceful, and they were pretty disappointed in me. They told me that I had embarrassed them and were mostly worried about what everybody would be saying about this when they got to know that I had been working. They believed that the fact that I had been working part-time would just let everybody else know that my parents were not able to fully provide for me, and that would allow people to guess that the cafe business had not been doing well, something that they had been trying to conceal from everybody for so long and so hard. I don't understand why they were trying to pretend. Everyone already knew the truth. But I didn't say that to them then because they were already pretty mad, and I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. So I just stayed quiet and let them get it all out. But then, after they were done yelling at me, they said that I had to quit the job that I had because it was just too shameful. I resisted a little at that point because the job was very important for me to have some sense of stability and remind myself that not everything was lost. Just because my parents were struggling with the money didn't mean that I could not make my own. I wanted to get a head start before I started college, and I tried to explain that to them, but they just kept repeating themselves over again, reminding me that I had already brought a lot of shame to the family by getting a job before I had even finished my education. They did not want me to embarrass them even more by continuing to work. So I told them that I was only doing this because I did not want to be a burden on them in the future since I had every intention of going to college, and I knew that they were struggling with money. They told me that I did not have to worry about that and they would take care of everything for me. They promised me and told me that by the time I would start applying, they would make sure they had something set aside for me. I could not fully trust them, but judging by the way that they were acting, I found it really hard to say no because it felt like they were really going to lose their minds if I said that I was going to continue working. So I did what they asked of me and I quit my job. It was one of the hardest decisions that I have ever made so far, but I had to do it because I did not want to make my parents even more upset than they already were. But I still could not bring myself to fully trust them because I knew that they were struggling and I had no idea how they were going to get the sort of money that they had promised me. I knew that sending kids to college was expensive, and the only option that I would be left with would be to take out a student loan to cover the cost of my education. I went to public school, so they did not have to worry about my education so far, but I did not want to compromise my college degree. I knew that if I took a student loan, I would spend the rest of my life paying it back, and it was also very unlikely that I would be able to get any sort of high-paying job without a college degree in this economy. So I decided to approach my grandparents for help again. I had to do it without my parents knowing because I knew that if they got to know that I was asking somebody for help, they would literally lose their minds and probably even kick me out. I knew they were too proud to ask for help, but I was not. I love my grandparents and knew that they would be glad to help us. Besides, I was not asking them for money for my parents, I was asking them to help me personally. So my parents could choose not to take money from their parents, but I did not have to abide by the same rules. At least, that's what I told myself when I made that decision. Almost 1 month after I had quit my job, I decided to approach my grandparents and ask them for help. I set up a meeting with them at my maternal grandparents' house and told them about everything that happened the previous month. I told them I was really worried about the money and I couldn't even go back to work because if my parents found out that I had been working, they would literally flip out. I did not want to risk getting them all upset again, but I also did not want to risk not being able to go to college because my parents were not able to live up to their promise. I was pretty sure they wouldn't be able to set aside money for me since they were still going about things the same way and have not taken any extra measures or changed anything about their lifestyle. My grandparents were all happy to help me. They told me that they wished even my parents would come to them because they were sure that with a little money, they would be able to revive the business. But my parents were too proud, forgetting the fact that they had even been able to start this business because of the first investment that my grandparents had made. I don't understand why they were behaving this way. As far as I knew, my grandparents had never made a big deal of it and had always referred to their kids as self-made, even though it was not really true in the strictest sense of the word. Anyway, I told my grandparents about it, and they told me that when the time came, they would definitely cover my college tuition. I was relieved. So for the next couple of months, up until a week ago, I wasn't exactly worried about anything and I went about my life without any anxiety about college or how I would be able to pay for it. My parents also did not bring it up again, so we spent the last couple of months not even talking about it because I did not want to bring up the fact that I already had asked my grandparents for money and they had agreed to help me. I knew that they would not like it, and they did not bring up anything about college with me because I was pretty sure that they would not be able to help me. Both of us avoided speaking to each other about it. However, last week, I got accepted into the college of my choice. We finally had to discuss it, and everything was out in the open. We could not hide these things from each other. A couple of hours after I received the email that said that I had been accepted, my parents started looking really uncomfortable. Eventually, after dinner, they told me that they had been thinking about this and they believed that it would be safer for me to get a student loan or try to work through college because at least then I would be of age and it would be away from home, so nobody would get to know about it. They confessed to me that they had been trying really hard for the past few months but they had not been able to save up enough money and were still struggling financially, so it would not be possible for them to pay for me to go to college and I had to look out for myself. They said that they were really sorry about it and they did not want to let me down, but they did not have any other option. Because at the time when I was working, they were really embarrassed by it and they did not want it to continue. They had to promise me that they would cover my tuition even if they were not sure if they would be able to keep their promise or not. But I had already seen this coming, and I was not even surprised when they told me that they would not be able to cover my tuition. I just smiled at them and told them that I got it covered and they did not have to worry about it. That took them by surprise, and I guess I should have been a little more careful about how I had reacted to avoid the drama that followed. They asked me why I was not more worried, and then I had to tell them the truth. When they found out that I had asked for money from my grandparents and now I would be depending on them, they reacted just as I had expected them to. They started screaming at me almost immediately and told me that I had completely ruined their reputation and that I needed to apologize to my grandparents and tell them that I would not be requiring any money from them. That there had been some confusion regarding my college fund and I did not need to depend on them because my parents would be able to provide for me. I had no idea why they even expected that I would do that just a few minutes after they had told me that they would not be able to cover my tuition.